Okay. So in last class we are discussing about Hermitian matrices, right? Hermitian and skew Hermitian matrices. Let's recall that. I have this one. Yeah, we have seen a special form of multiplication here, Hartmart multiplication. I'll give you one task here. You try to find what is an identity element here. Identity element. I'm not asking what is an identity matrix. That identity matrix we defined with respect to the standard multiplication we have defined earlier. But here, if you take this multiplication for matrices, what is the identity matrix? That you think about it. So we have seen introduction to Hermitian matrices, right? So we call matrices Hermitian when a conjugate transpose is same as A, right? And we call it a skew Hermitian when it is conjugate transpose of A is equal to negative of A, right? And we proved some results like when for any matrix A into A star and A star into A, they are always Hermitian matrices. And similarly, A plus A star, when you know A is a square matrix, A plus A star will be Hermitian, whereas A minus A star will be skew Hermitian matrix. Right, and this is what I gave you as homework, just to prove AB whole conjugate is same as A conjugate into B conjugate. Yeah, and few more things we have seen. When you know A is Hermitian and B is any rectangular matrix where the multiplication with A is possible, then you can say that B into AB star, or if the other way multiplication is possible, that is B star into A into B, we can say that they are also Hermitian matrix. Yeah, and then we started constructing some examples, I guess. Example for Hermitian matrix. So if you observe that when you take a Hermitian matrix, the diagonal entries must be real numbers, and whereas the non-diagonal you can have a complex or real. Like every real number you can treat it as a complex number, but let me say purely real. It means there is no imaginary part on the diagonal, right? And of course we have seen proof for it, because you can talk in terms of elements. Aij conjugate, that is same as Aji, right? So using that you can prove the diagonal entries are real for a Hermitian matrix. And one more important thing we observed is A can be expressed as m plus in, where m and n are real matrices. I mean a matrix with real entries. You can observe that where M is a symmetric matrix, whereas N is a skew symmetric matrix. So if you give me a symmetric and skew symmetric matrix, I can simply construct a Hermitian matrix with the help of these two. Simply I'll take M plus In. Yeah, and then we have seen some examples for a skew Hermitian matrix. So here the observation is the diagonal entries must be purely imaginary for a skew Hermitian matrix. Okay. If you didn't do that exercise, please do it again. Writing these matrices, you should have some idea. Okay. You may think it is easy. Fine. Since it is an easy job, just do it. Okay. It won't take much time. So let's discuss more about these Hermitian matrices. Okay. So here is one thing I'd like to discuss. You can take it as a theorem. So if A is a Hermitian matrix, then what can you say about I into A, and similarly minus I into A? So let's try to see. So given A is Hermitian, that is A star equal to A, that's what we know. Now we'd like to investigate about I into A. Okay, so let's take conjugate transpose to it. Let's see what happens. So this is nothing but I A whole conjugate transpose. That's the definition of star, right? So we know this is same as you can take I conjugate out and A conjugate transpose. But anyway, you can write this as I conjugate into A conjugate transpose. So finally we end up with this minus I times A star, but you know A star is same as A because it is Hermitian matrix. So this is minus I times A. Okay. So therefore you can see that IA whole star, which is equal to minus IA. So what is the conclusion? Hello? What is the conclusion? If A is Hermitian, what can you say about I times A? Can you say it is Hermitian or skew Hermitian?
Skew Hermitians.
Yeah, it is a skew Hermitian matrix because I got negative of the same thing when I take transpose conjugate. Therefore, you can conclude that IA is skew Hermitian. And similarly, let us investigate about minus I times A. Let's see that. So if I take minus I times A, so when I take star, right, you can simply write it this way: minus IA conjugate transpose. So this is minus I conjugate into A conjugate transpose. So which is minus I conjugate, that's going to be just I, and this is A star, but you know that A star is A, so this is I times A. So this is what you can observe, minus IA star, which is equal to IA. But be careful, we started with minus IA, so let me have minus IA here. So minus of minus IA, that gives me I times A. Okay, so you started with the matrix B, you took its transpose conjugate, and we end up with minus B. So therefore you can conclude that this B is a skew Hermitian matrix. So therefore minus I times A is a skew Hermitian matrix, provided A is Hermitian. Okay, so now we can complete the statement of the theorem. If you know A is a Hermitian matrix, then IA and minus I times A, these are skew Hermitian matrices. Okay. Okay, now let me move to some problems. Yeah, look at this problem. If A and B are Hermitian matrices, prove that AB minus BA is a skew Hermitian matrix. So it is simple. You know this information that A is Hermitian, so that is so that implies you know that A star equal to A. Similarly, B is Hermitian, so that implies B star equal to B. Now you'd like to investigate about AB minus BA. Okay, so let's take conjugate transpose. So we know that this is same as AB star minus BA star. Because you can prove this result, that is A plus B transpose conjugate will be same as A transpose conjugate plus B transpose conjugate. Okay, so using this result I can simply write it this way. Now you know that this can be expressed as B star A star minus A star B star. But you know what is B star, which is same as B because B is Hermitian, and this is A minus A times B. So if you take minus out, so this is what we get, AB minus BA. Okay, so you can clearly see that AB minus BA is a skew Hermitian matrix, provided A and B are Hermitian matrices. So let's quickly look at the additional problem sheet. Where is it? Yeah, here are the problems. So the first thing, prove that Hermitian and skew Hermitian matrices are square matrices. It's easy to prove because you would like to equate the matrix and its transpose. So you can equate it when A is a square matrix, that's it. They must be of same size, then only you can compare those two. And next, show that the diagonal elements of a Hermitian matrix are real and the diagonal elements of a skew Hermitian matrix are purely imaginary. Yes, we proved it. If you remember, we know what is the definition of a Hermitian matrix, that Aij will be equal to what? Aij conjugate of Aij equal to Aji. This is what we know, right? So using it, when I equal to I, you are going to get a diagonal entry, and here I. So you just start with x plus iy here, there x plus iy. You could see that the imaginary part must be 0. This is what for a Hermitian matrix. Whereas if it is skew Hermitian, you are going to have minus. That also we discussed. Yeah, the third part was also discussed. If you take a skew Hermitian matrix, okay, I think we discussed for a Hermitian matrix, but here they are asking for a skew Hermitian matrix. Yes, this also you could do. You can express that A has m plus in, where m is a real skew symmetric matrix, n is a symmetric matrix. But here, try to observe the difference. When you start with a Hermitian matrix, when A is Hermitian, then we have written that A equal to m plus in. So there, where m is symmetric, real symmetric matrix, it means symmetric matrix with real entries, whereas this one is skew symmetric. Okay, but when it comes to Hermitian, it is reverse. Like m is going to be skew symmetric, n is going to be real symmetric. Okay, so you try this proof. So the next thing, show that every square matrix is uniquely accessible as a sum of Hermitian and skew Hermitian matrices. Yes, we did for symmetric and skew symmetric matrices. So you can apply the similar idea here. So the idea is you start with any square matrix n by n. It should be expressed as sum of Hermitian, that is A plus A star plus half of A minus A star. So this is that representation. Okay, whatever A may be with complex entries, then you can create, you can write that A as a sum of Hermitian and a skew Hermitian matrix. And fifth one is just an application of that fourth problem. They're asking us to express it as a sum of Hermitian and skew Hermitian. And anything left? So the last problem, where is it? Okay. So if A is a Hermitian matrix, prove that I into A is a skew Hermitian matrix. We did it. Okay. Right. Now let me introduce another matrix which is called normal matrix. A square no need to be square. A matrix A is said to be a normal matrix if A into A star, that's equal to A star into A. So do I need that A must be square, or can it be a rectangular matrix? Tell me from this definition. Let us say if A is an m by n matrix, right, then A into A star, so this star going to be n by m matrix, so you end up with an m by m matrix. Whereas when you take A star into A, so this is an n by m, whereas this is an m by n, so you end up with an n by n matrix. So you will get matrices of two different sizes, you cannot compare these two. So here A must be a square matrix. So let me mention here n by n. So a square matrix is said to be normal matrix if A into A star equal to A star into A. Okay. So there is something special about these normal matrices. We'll discuss in later. And you do one thing, you try to construct an example for a normal matrix. So you take it as a homework. That can be 2 by 2 or 3 by 3. So this is the question. You try to make your own construction instead of googling it. Okay, if you google it, you get nothing. You get just the answer, but your mind won't think. So first you think. So that's why I don't ask you to write an example. I asked you to construct an example. It means I wanted you to do it. Right? So you start with a 2 by 2. Just a 2 by 2 is enough. And if you can, then go for 3 by 3. Okay. So now this is all about matrix introduction. Okay. So now I mean, we are going to discuss few more topics like vector space, inner product space, and non-linear space. Okay, just to enable uh, measuring the distance between the elements in the vector spaces. Okay, and for knowing the length of the elements, and for knowing angle between the elements I mean a vector space. The moment you say vector space, there you're taking elements as just vectors. For example, I mean, let's say you take r2 over r, it is a vector space. Do you remember the definition of vector space we discussed in the beginning? Vector space over a field F. This field, we observe that can be rational numbers or real numbers or complex numbers, and of course we discussed about finite fields. We're not using those finite fields in this course. So mostly we'll take entries from the complex numbers, that's it. The moment I take complex numbers, the real numbers are anyway there and rationals were anyway there. Mostly real and complex, these are the two things we use as a field here. So you start with any non-empty set where the addition of elements is defined and a scalar multiplication is defined. So we call this V is a vector space. This over F, we simply denote it like this, V over F. If it has some properties, right? What are the properties? When you take two elements from V, when you add it, the resultant must be an element of V. This must be true for every V1, V2 in V. And similarly, lambda times V must be an element of V. This must be true for every lambda from F, and similarly V from F. And the rest of the properties related to the addition and the scalar multiplication which is defined. So the first thing we look for associativity, and the next thing commutativity over addition. I'm talking about the addition, okay? And next thing you look for an identity, and the next thing you look for an inverse with respect to addition. This is what. And with respect to the scalar multiplication, so we look for some properties like alpha into beta into V, that must be same as alpha into beta V, and like 1 into V must be same as V, and distributive properties, that is alpha into V1 plus V2 must be same as alpha V1 plus alpha V2. See, since we have discussed earlier, I'm not writing everything clearly here. Okay, but mostly this is the thing we will see first, whether the addition is closed and the multiplication is closed or not. And the next thing, we look for an identity element, whether this set has an identity element or not. If you take the standard addition, then this identity element is going to be 0. But if you define a new kind of addition, there the identity element may differ. It may not be 0, it may be something else. Okay, mostly for the standard addition, 0 is the identity element. So these are the three things we look for first. And next, with respect to operation, like binary operation defined, that is addition and multiplication. If you are taking a standard operation, then there is no issue. But if you are defining a new kind of operation, then you must check these properties: associativity, commutativity, additive, identity inverse, and similarly the rest. Okay. So let us assume that you have a vector space over field F. So let V or F be a vector space. Now I'd like to see some examples for a vector space. So the basic example what we know is set of all real numbers over real numbers. That is a vector space. And similarly, whereas real numbers over complex numbers. So this cannot be a vector space. Why? Because the field is bigger than the actual set. Field cannot be bigger than the actual set. Because if I take a lambda from complex number, that is 1 plus I, and my vector V is from R, let me take 2. So lambda times V, what I get is 1 plus I times 2. I get 2 plus 2I. So this does not belongs to V, where my V is this. So therefore this cannot be a vector space because the scalar multiplication is closed, not closed. And remember one thing, the scalar set, it cannot be bigger than the vector set. Okay, so the first one, this is what we take it as a vector set, and this is a scalar set. So the next, if you look at C over R, yes, it is a vector space. I'd like to write few more things. C over R, it is a vector space, and similarly R2 over R, and of course C over C, and similarly set of all matrices with real entries, 2 by 2 matrices. M2 I mean set of all 2 by 2 matrices, and similarly you can take set of all n by n matrices, and polynomials of degree less than or equal to 2 with real coefficients. You can take complex coefficients as well. Okay, so these are some examples of vector spaces. There are few things I'd like to mention. What are the bases of this vector space? So do you remember the concept of basis? Okay. So if not, no issue. So the thing is, you must be able to find some subset of V. You have V, okay, so you must be able to pick up some entries of V, so that you'll be able to span the entire vector space with these elements. For example, you look at R2, I'll give you just two elements, that is 1 comma 0 and 0 comma 1. So with these two I can give you any element. For example, I'm asking 5 comma 10. So what will I do? 5 times the first plus 10 times the second gives me 5 comma 10. Okay, and this linear combination is extremely useful when you define paths for a robo. For example, you take a robo and let's assume that you fix 2 directions for it. Like it is allowed to move in 2 directions only. One is the direction of x-axis, another one is the direction of y-axis. Okay. So now if I have these 2 directions, can I be able to move to any point that I wish? Yes, it is possible. For example, if you ask me to go for A to B, yes, I can. What I'll do is I'll ask that robot to move along x-axis by A units and along y-axis B units. Finally, you end up with at A comma B. So like this you go. So you'll reach to A comma 0. After reaching here, this point, you need to take this direction, and you'll go to A comma B. Okay. Whereas if you create a robo in 3 dimension, let us say it is a fly kind of thing. There also let us assume that it can move in certain directions only, in the given directions only. If you want to reach to your point, you must use these directions and reach. You need to reach that point. Okay, so how many directions I need to define? If you are in a space, if you are in a plane, you came to know that just two different directions are enough to reach any point. But in three-dimensional space, so how many directions you are going to fix? What is that identity matrix? Orthogonal functions. Do you understand my question? You are in a three-dimensional space, R3 over R. Okay, you must give me how many directions I need, how many different directions I need, so that with the help of the directions, I'll be able to move to any point.
3 directions.
How many? Are two directions are enough in R3?
No, sir.
No,
We
sir.
have to do three directions.
Minimum three. Why? Because if you fix to only two directions, you can move over a plane. That's it. With that two directions, you can just create a plane. It means you can move over a plane. That's it. But if you have one more direction which is independent of this, yes, this enable me to reach to any point. Okay. So that minimum number of vector set, you can take it as a basis set. But you have a formal definition here when it comes to mathematics. Like we say a set is a basis set, when that set is linearly independent. Let me write first of all, what are the basis set for R3? You can take the standard basis set, 1 0 0 x-axis direction, 0 1 0 y-axis direction, and 0 0 1 z-axis direction. These are the standard basis. Yeah, one can take another directions as well. So now the question is, like, in which space you are. We'd like to find the minimum number of vectors so that the entire space can be generated with that minimum number of vectors. Generated, I mean every element in that vector space can be expressed as a combination of these given vectors. That is one condition. And the next thing is we need minimum number. In other words, let me say that least possible set. For example, if you can go with three directions, definitely you can go with 4 and 5 and 6. But minimum what do we expect is 3. At least we need 3 in R3. So when it is minimum, linear independence will tell you whether that set has just the least number of elements or not. And the next thing, you look for span. Spanning, I mean you take any element in V from the vector space, you must be able to express this V as a combination of elements in the set. Okay, when it comes to linearly independent, it is there in the it is there here itself, like linearly independence. I mean, no element depends on others. It means no element, no Vi can be expressed as combination of this. Let's assume Vi is not here. For example, if you look at this set 1 0 0 cannot be expressed as a combination of 0 1 0 and similarly 0 0 1. Then I can clearly say that this element is independent of these two. Similarly, you can think about the rest. You cannot find any element which can be expressed as combination of others. Then I can say that that set is linearly independent. So we say a set is a basis set if it is linearly independent and it spans the entire vector space. Okay, linearly independent is to make sure that we have just minimum possible number. Let me do one thing, just for clarity, let me write what are the basis set for all these vector spaces so that you'll have little idea. So basis for this is 1. Okay, just if you give me 1 with this, I can give you any element in real numbers. If you want 5, yes, from my scalar bag I'll take 5 and multiply with 1, I get 5. Okay, not only 1, you can take any, let's say 2, this is a basis set, and similarly 3 basis set, but this one is a standard basis. Yeah, when it comes to C over R, this you tell me. When you construct basis set, you must take elements from the vector space. What is the vector set here? The complex number set is a vector set and real numbers is a scalar set. So you pick up elements from the vector set and create a basis here. So how many elements you need minimum? Okay, let me do it if you have a confusion. Any complex number can be expressed this way, right? A plus IB. Okay, now can I write it like this? This is A times 1 plus B times I, where A and B are real numbers. Now you could see that any complex number can be expressed as a combination of 1 and I. So can I take 1 comma I as a basis set? One is a complex number. Yes, you can see that 1 plus I into 0, and I is also a complex number. So I took elements from C, and with the help of this scalar set R, I am able to express it as a combination of these two. You just ask me some element. If you ask me root 2 plus 3i, yes, I can give you root 2 into the first element here. Let me call it as v1 plus 3 into v2 will give me root 2 plus 3i. That's it. Okay. And they are independent. What?
-1.
-1? Yeah, you can take negative. Okay, you want to get -1 from these two?
Yes, sir.
Okay, -1 is nothing but -1 times 1 plus 0 times I. In other words, -1 times v1 plus 0 times v2. That's it. See, -1 is anyway, it is available in the scalar set. So -1 times 1 will give you -1. That's it. Okay. Now I'd like to talk about this. So here we are saying that 1 comma I, this is the basis set. What about for C over C? What is the basis set? It is very important to have field in mind. What?
1, comma 1.
See, whenever you write a set, we do not write the same element twice.
Just one is enough.
Just one is enough. Good. Does everybody agree with this? Our friend says that just one is enough to create a basis set here. Okay, I got it out. Sir, I'd like to find this element 1 plus 3i. Like I would like to get this element 2 plus 3i. How do you get it? Using this set. Can you express this 2 plus 3i as a combination of just 1?
2 plus 3i into 1.
Exactly. 2 plus 3i into 1. See, this is what our aims are. We would like to write this guy as lambda times v, where in our case v is 1. This is what I want. And lambda it should be taken from the complex number set because the field is complex numbers, no? So I'll take lambda as 2 plus 3i. But if you observe the second example, I do not have that facility. Here field is real numbers, so where lambda should come from real number set only. But when it comes to here, the field is complex numbers, so I can take lambdas to be a complex number itself. Okay. So now you can see that here when you are over C over R, you need at least two vectors. So now that is why this is called a two-dimensional space. Two-dimensional. When you see this, when you see C over a vector space over R. Whereas when it comes to this is a one-dimensional.
1, comma minus 5.
What is it?
Complex over R, sir. Can we take 1, comma minus 5?
Okay, so here your question is, can I take 1 comma minus I? Okay, yes, you can take. Why? Because let's say I would like to get 2 plus 3i. Okay, so now I should write it as lambda 1 times v1 plus lambda 2 times v2. I know what is v1, that is 1 itself, plus lambda 2 times v2 is minus I. So what is the choice of lambda 1, lambda 2 from this real number set? I'll take lambda 1 to be 2 and lambda 2 you take it as minus 3. Minus 3 is available from real numbers, right? So I get it, 2 plus 3i, that's it. So I am able to express every element as a combination of these. And of course, I'll give one more. 1 plus I, 2 minus I. Even you can check that this also a basis for C over R. Actually, in future you can see.
It means we can have infinite, sir.
What?
It means we can have infinite number of set.
Yeah, when it comes to basis set, that is not unique. Basis set is not unique. You can have like you may work with one basis set, I may work with one basis set. See, for example, basis is nothing but this, sir. You let's discuss in R2 so that it will be clear. Okay, so my aim is this. I am creating simply a robot. Okay, and you are given with some assignment. The assignment is you try to fix two directions to this robo so that it can move to any point that I give. So you, let's say 10 people are doing the project, like they are doing it differently, like one is different from other. In that case, one may take this simple direction, like he will fix these two directions to the robo so that he can move to any point. And when it comes to other guy, he may fix this direction, these two, one is this, another one is this. Yes, with these two directions also I can move to any place. And similarly, okay, and one more guy has taken this direction, one is this, and next one is exactly opposite. And let's say the other guy, he choose this direction, and another one is this direction. Okay, now tell me which guy is going to be failed here.
Fourth quadrant.
This person is going to be failed. Why? Because he can move either forward or backward, that's it. He cannot move the other place. Suppose if he want to reach here, he cannot reach this point with this direction and this direction. When the robot is here, let's say. But if you look at the other three, it is possible. Let us say you are here and you want this robot to place it here. So what do? So first I'll ask it to move in this direction, somewhere here, and next it is good if we go in different way. So first I'll move opposite direction of it. Now when you have V, you can move in opposite direction, no issue with that. Then I'll follow this direction. I'm little wrong, but yeah, here it is enough, I hope. Okay, so this is the instruction you are going to give. So how many such possibilities are there? Like how many ways you can ask the robot to move? What I mean, how many directions you can see that? We can have infinitely many. And if you want to see a clear picture, you can do one thing. You can go for GeoGebra. There, I'll demonstrate in the next class. See, in GeoGebra, you can actually see like how this basis works. How will it be useful to see it in a different way? Okay. And when it comes to R2 over R, I am writing the standard basis here. So the standard basis is 1, 0, 0, 1. When it comes to set of all 2 by 2 matrices, this is nothing but 1, 0, 0, 0 and 0, 1, 0, 0, and this is 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. So this is the basis set. I can write any 2 by 2 matrix with the help of these 2 by 2 matrices, and this is the minimum possible set. I mean, this is the linearly independent set and spans all 2 by 2 matrices. And how about P2 over R? What are the bases? Okay, first of all, let me tell you what is P2 over R. Set of all 2 by 2 matrices, set of all polynomials of degree less than or equal to 2, where A, B, C are coming from real numbers. Where field is real number field and the vectors are polynomials here. Can you tell me the basis set?
It may consist one, sir.
Okay, it will consist 1. And next, one more. 1 you can take it as a polynomial.
X square.
Yeah, correct. X and x square. If you want 2 plus 3x, let's say 2 plus 3x square, this is what I want. So what I'll do is, I'll take it as v1, v2, v3, 2 times of v1 plus 0 times of v2 plus 3 times of v3. It will give me 2 plus 3x square. So this is the standard basis set for set of all polynomials of degree 2. Okay. Yeah. Narayan has raised hand. So what is your doubt?
No, sir. It's by mistake.
Okay, okay. Fine. If you want more clarity on what is linearly independent and what is a spanning set, what is a basis set and all, I can suggest you some videos, or if possible, I'll make a video and post it. Okay. I'm not. I don't like to discuss those things in this course. Why? Because we have lot of more things to discuss here. If we spend more time on it, like, we will not be able to spend more time on the interesting topics you are going to see here. Okay.
Suggest some videos.
Yeah, sure. Okay, then I'll stop it here. So in the next class, we'll discuss about inner product space, like inner product on this vector space. We are going to define it and we'll solve some problems on it. Okay, so here I'll stop it. And let me know if you have any questions or doubts.